A theoretical definition of a construct in research literature means the abstract explanation of a phenomenon that is being studied. This definition outlines the specific meaning, scope, and dimensions of the construct in the context of the research. It distinguishes the construct from other related constructs and provides a foundation for developing measurable indicators or variables, which is operational definition. Reading different scholars' work, you may find different theoretical definitions. Some differences are primarily semantic. For example, you find some empirical articles published in high-impact journals and examine the theoretical definition of participative leadership, shared leadership, and collective leadership. Here is an example. In the article titled Directive versus Participative Leadership, Two Complementary Managing School Effectiveness, published in Educational Administration Quarterly, which is a top-tier research journal in the field of educational leadership and administration. The author, Solmack, defined participative leadership as providing the members with a framework for decision-making and action in alignment with the leader's vision. And this is the theoretical definition of participative leadership. Researchers are often incentivized to propose their own terms in the hope that they'll gain popularity. As a researcher, it is your job to critically analyze the literature. In my previous video on circular reasoning, I mentioned that the theoretical definitions of justice and equity in our field have a circular reasoning problem. Many people define equity in terms of justice and then turn around to define justice in terms of equity. This circular reasoning undermines the clarity and distinctiveness of each construct. So, what do justice and equity really mean exactly? If we don't have a clear definition of terms, how can we ensure we're on the same page and discussing the same thing? Now that we've learned what theoretical definition is, in any discipline, it is not sufficient to have only theoretical definition. A construct should have operational definitions. What is operational definition? It specifies the exact procedures and criteria used to measure or manipulate a variable in the research study. An operational definition translates abstract constructs into measurable and observable elements. It gives clarity and replicability by detailing how the construct will be quantified and observed. And replicability is a fundamental principle of science. Without the operational definitions, researchers won't be able to collect data and test hypotheses. In an applied field like leadership management and administration, it is particularly important to develop operational definitions of a construct. Because operational definitions are specific, they bridge the gap between theory and practice. For example, consider the construct of job satisfaction. Theoretical definitions may describe it as an employee's overall emotional response to their job. However, operational definitions may vary significantly. One study may measure job satisfaction using a single-item survey question, while another uses a multidimensional scale covering different aspects like pay, work environment, and work-life balance. By comparing different operational definitions, I can evaluate whether they truly capture the theoretical construct of job satisfaction as intended. Similarly, with constructs like leadership effectiveness, theoretical definitions may emphasize traits, behaviors, or outcomes. Operational definitions, however, could range from the number of followers, achievement of organizational goals, or ratings by teammates. Discrepancies between those definitions can reveal misalignment that influence the validity and reliability of research findings. As a researcher, when I start examining the operational definitions of a construct, I begin to see problems. Since the operational definitions are more specific than theoretical definitions, I can look at what other scholars really mean when they use a term, and then I can evaluate whether the theoretical and the operational definitions are well aligned. Let's look at how the construct of equity was defined theoretically and operationally in this article titled, "What do teacher job postings tell us about school hiring needs and equity?" published in Educational Evaluation and Policy Analysis in 2023. This journal is another top-tier journal in education research. Now I encourage you to pause this video, give the article a read, and see if you can find theoretical definition and operational definition of equity. What do you find? Here is what I found. First, theoretical definition. I cannot find a theoretical definition in this article. At least the authors did not explicitly provide a theoretical definition of equity. This is actually a common problem in educational leadership literature. In my article titled, "The More the Merrier, Construct Content Validity in School Leadership Literature," published in Educational Management Administration and Leadership in 2023, I reported that at least half of the reviewed articles I did for that study did not provide a theoretical definition. Very often, the first time that term was used was in the methods section instead of the literature review and the theoretical framework section. Let's move on to the operational definition of equity. The construct of equity in this article was operationalized as differences in teachers' years of experience in schools serving students of color. Specifically, it examined whether schools serving more students of color are disproportionately impacted by having a higher number of new teachers. When you write a literature review, it is not enough just to cite the existing literature. The literature review is not a laundry list. Instead, you need to critique the existing literature to pave the way for your study. For example, you could discuss how previous studies have defined and measured equity in different ways. You can highlight any inconsistencies or gaps in the literature. Now think about how you'd like to critique this article. In addition to introduce how equity was defined in this article, you can add a critique of the theoretical definition like this. The article does not provide an explicit theoretical definition of equity. The absence of a clear theoretical definition means that readers may not fully understand the theoretical underpinnings of equity as used in this study. This can lead to ambiguity about what exactly is being measured and how it relates to broader discussion of educational equity. As for operational definition, you can critique it like this. While the operational definition is clear and specific, it focuses solely on teacher experience. This narrow operational definition may overlook other critical aspects of equity, such as access to advanced coursework, funding disparities, student support services, or parental engagement. Moreover, there may be other factors influencing the distribution of experienced teachers that are not accounted for, such as the prevalence of abusive supervision, workplace aggression, or district policies like seniority-based teacher transfers and hiring practices. Those factors can significantly impact the availability and distribution of experienced teachers, thereby influencing the results related to equity. Of course, you can critique the article from a different perspective. Since I focus on theory development, my critique is mostly about the constructs and theories. From a reader's perspective, it is more informative to read a literature review with a critical eye instead of a dry list of Scholar A said X, Scholar B said Y, without the author's own voice. If you don't know where to start to critique the existing literature, use the questions I provide in the workbook. Ask yourself whether this theory or article you are reading provides explanations of what, how, why, and when regarding the phenomenon of your interest. Once you start asking those questions, you will be surprised how much critique you can write.